Alright, so I went ahead, I got the tub off. It just comes right off. You want to be gentle. Got the two bolts out from the ringer drive here. It's just two 1/2-inch bolts with two flathead screws. They come out really easy. And they are sitting right here. That's the ones that go to it. We'll reuse them. They're in pretty good shape. They came out pretty easy. You want to be gentle when you lift it off. And good time too is when you got this thing flipped over. And this is the first one I've ever taken apart, but just a lot of common sense stuff I'm going to apply to this is when you got it flipped over like this, go ahead and look over it really good. And the biggest thing is, I'm going to say it's cast aluminum, but you want to make sure it's no cracks. There's a number right here. But no cracks or anything on this tub whatsoever. That's a big thing, because if it's cracked, it's really, I don't know if you could TIG it or not, but it's not good. And you also want to make sure it's not very corroded down in this area. This is where the gasket sits and it'll seat. This is the main reason why I pulled this off, because if you don't, it'll seep water out. And you can run these washers indoor. You don't have to run them with the hit and miss motor. They make conversion motors for these to run a regular, 3/4 horsepower. A lot of them I found, did some research on, is saying 3/4 horsepower, just a regular single phase 120 motor will work just fine. And you just pull this motor off and sit on the shelf, keep it. And I would highly recommend keeping it. And then quote unquote retire it and just bolt your electric motor to it, because it's really not that hard to do. That's what a lot of people did back then. And your drain is the same way, except it takes two 7/16-inch nuts here on the bottom here to get that off. And then once you get that off, that's copper, it looks like. Yeah, it's copper. That should clean up. Here's probably the original hose here. It's like just a regular flathead screw, so we'll take this clamp off here and we can sandblast that and reuse it. And you want to make sure that this drain under here is not cracked or anything as well. And you can just take some steel wool if you really want it and just kind of rub around it and just make sure it's not cracked or anything. Or you could just tape the end up, hold your hand over it, and just take a bottle of water and pour down it and see if it seeps anywhere. But finally, I got the screw out here. I took a pair of vice grips and I was able to get this out, so that's good. So we were able to get them all out. That's the one that was stubborn. I had to grind the head off of it. So thank goodness that is out. And now we got them all out, and we didn't disturb any of the threads or anything, so that's really good. But this is the main reason too, is this gasket, if you just look at it, it's just very deteriorated. So that's why I wanted to get off, because if you don't, it'll leak all down all over your hit and miss motor, or if you have an electric motor, it'll leak down all over that, and just water and electricity don't go together good. And plus, as old as it is, I mean, we're talking almost, a 90-year-old washer here, so I mean, it's overdue. It needs to be replaced. And those gaskets, I mean, you can still buy them, and even if you couldn't, it looked like a regular old quart gasket, I would say. But we'll go ahead and get our drain off here. I think it's a pin right here that you got to knock out, it looks like, to get this whole mechanism here off. I'll have to look into this because I'm trying to take my time on this. I do not want to screw up on this, because if I do, these are very scarce and very hard to find parts for, so you want to be extremely, extremely gentle taking these things apart. But anyway, here we got our tub off, a ringer that's pretty much just lifts off. And this is good to know too, because if you ever want to transport one of these, you can break these washers down, because these washers are not exactly light. But you have 8 bolts here, and they're all 1/2 inch. 1/2 inch bolt, 1/2 inch nuts. They are 8. There's 2, 4, 6, 8. To take the tub off, you got 6 screws on the bottom, 6 flathead screws, and then you got 2 1/2 inch nuts and 2 regular flathead screws to remove it from here. And then you could break this whole thing down if you really want it, and then take the 4 bolts holding this motor on, set it off, and then you could transport this if you really want it. That way it's save on weight. But that's one thing I'm really leery. I want to put this out there is when you buy these things. I was thinking about buying one off the internet. This one actually I did buy through eBay. Believe it or not, I actually picked it up in person because it was so close. But I'm so kind of worried about shipping something like this because the main reason is the tub. It's not so much the motor or anything or the transmission. I mean, I'm still worried about that too, but this tub is like gold pretty much because if it's anything wrong with it's cracked or anything, you know, I don't know, it'll be almost impossible to fix. But really, a right person, they could get the sheet metal. And I actually thought about duplicating this exact tub and just getting regular, you know, aluminum. You could TIG weld something up. You could copy the patterns if you really wanted. Wouldn't be that hard to recreate this washer. I wish they made a replica of it. But anyway, we got our tub off here. We're going to go ahead and get our drain off here. And then I'll see y'all in the next video here.